Hey everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about books with the time loop trope, which was one of my favorite ones. If you enjoy reading about someone reliving their day or their life over and over again, this is a video for you. I'm going to go through the 10 books that I've read that contain this trope. 2 of them, I think it's a spoiler, one more than the other. I'll be very clear whenever we get to that portion. So that's going to be the second portion. And the last one will be about books I'm looking forward to reading that I'm pretty sure are about time loop. I'm saying that because I feel like sometimes the line between like time loop and like time travel, it can be a bit confusing. So I tried to be super specific. I'll do a different video later on about time travels so I can continue talking about it because I like it. So yes, we're going to start with the books that I have read, whether I have liked them or not, with the time loop trope. Just because I didn't give a book 5 stars doesn't mean you're going to feel the same. So I'll let you know the topic, the plot, and then what I liked and didn't like so you can make your own decision. So I'm pretty sure this is the first book I read with that trope when I started becoming completely obsessed with it. And it is The First 15 Lives of Harry August. I feel like if you like time loops, you've probably heard of that one. I feel like the title kind of gives it away. You're following the life of Harry August, and when he's dying at the end of his 11th life, a little girl appears and lets him know that the world is ending and he's having to try and fix it. So what is interesting with this one is you kind of have 2 vibes all in one. I feel like some sections feel very much like action movie, and the second portion feels a bit literally fiction in general. Clara North, her writing style is very literally fiction, very like stream of consciousness, which may or may not be your thing. It's not really my thing, but I feel like she has such interesting ideas that her books are worth it anyway for me. So yes, in this one, I feel like it is explained by the fact that the main character has lived his life so many times that eventually, you know, it gets a little confused. Is it my 7th life? Which one was it that this thing happened? So it makes sense. In general, enjoyable book. I think it would make an interesting movie. I do think there's an interesting twist also to the whole like reliving his life over and over again. I'm not going to spoil anything. I would just recommend this one in general. I do think this is one of the best ones that I have read. The next one I have read is Replay. This one is super interesting. Would highly recommend it. You're following this man who I believe is 43. He's on the phone with his wife and he seems to be dying of a heart attack. And he wakes up in his 18-year-old body and he's reliving his life over and over again. There is an interesting twist. I'm not going to go into it, but I appreciated that even though this book in general is more dated, I believe it's the oldest one on the list of the ones I have read. I appreciated that he actually makes normal decisions. Like, I feel like sometimes you're following someone and you're like, I would never do that ever. And I feel like it's just weird if you get a chance to relive your life to not try to fix your mistakes or try to do things differently. And I do feel like he really does that, at least in the beginning. I do also like that throughout the book, things become a bit more like philosophical, which makes sense again, because if you live your life over and over again, you would hope that you would, you know, become a little bit more mature. But yes, this was interesting. I did like the ending overall. I think in general, with time loops, the ending is usually the weakest part, which brings us to the next book. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. And you can see my edition does not have the .5 because I read it super early. I was looking desperately for more books with time loops after reading these 2, and I found this one. There was like 2,000 ratings on Goodreads, so I got super lucky because I had absolutely no expectations, none. So I feel like I appreciated this book a lot more than if you were to pick it up right now because of the hype in general. But this one, I love the mix of murder mystery and sci-fi, the time loop. You get the little map actually there in the book. So there's a group of people in this house and Evelyn Hardcastle dies every night. Is it at 11 or something? And the main character is trying to figure out what's going on because he keeps reliving the day over and over again. However, he wakes up in a different body every day. But he doesn't know who his other bodies are, who's an ally, who is an enemy. So it just makes things more interesting, more complicated. But because the main character is really confused, I would give yourself like a good 100 pages for things to make sense because he is thrown into the story and so are you. So that explains it. But yes, like I said, the ending is by far the weakest part of the book. I did still overall enjoy it. And if you are prepared for that, I feel like it should not, you know, ruin it for you. But I feel like it's open enough that the author could bring out a second book. Not like a follow-up, but like a companion novel. I feel like I'm really desperate for more books like this because this was so cool, the concept. So would recommend this one. Just prepare yourself for the ending. You might like it though. This next one, I ended up surprisingly loving it. I didn't expect it. Wrong Place, Wrong Time. It's just because it is part of the Reese Witherspoon book club, and it's been really hit and miss, mostly miss for me. So I went into it with low expectations, but the premise seemed so interesting that I really wanted to read it. You're following this woman who, on her son's 18th birthday, she watches him walking home, and then she sees him murder man, which makes no sense because he's such a good kid, a little bit nerdy, just funny, good, you know, would not expect him to do that. And she wakes up the next day, and she's going back in time, and she's trying to just figure out what happened, what went wrong, how did they end up there, blah, blah, blah. I would call this like a mom's recommendation. You'll see I have that one because there are a few like mom jokes, but in general, this was an interesting book. I feel like the only complaint I've heard about this one is that the main female character is not the most likable, which I feel like I personally don't really mind, but this was still a really interesting take once again, and the ending was pretty good. I feel like, again, my bar is pretty low with time loops. They're so hard to end, but this was an interesting one. Would highly recommend. It's very readable. The next one is for historical fiction lovers, Life After Life. You're following character as she is going through like World War I, World War II. That's kind of where she relives her life over and over again. So this influences the story. Personally, not a big fan of World War II. I'm still over reading books with it, but you might feel differently. But I thought this was interesting because in the beginning it's very character driven. She doesn't always make it very far in her life, which I feel like also realistic because I feel like you're often following these stories of people reliving their life and like they never die in a dumb way. But she definitely does. But yes, I didn't really love the ending because of, again, World War II section, but would recommend it if this is your thing, if you don't have prejudice against World War II. So if we're continuing in the going down rating wise, we have In a Holidays. This is an adult romance with the sci-fi twist of time loop, and I would recommend it if you want to read it around the holidays because In a Holidays, but the ending was not great. It starts actually pretty good. You have this woman, her family and family friends every holidays, they join in this house and, you know, they've done this her whole life and she is very close to the sons from the other family and you can kind of see where this is going to become a romance. What I didn't like is the fact that it starts pretty good with the time loop and then it kind of just abandons it and becomes a bit... but yeah, if you go into it with low expectations or if you're in general more someone that likes romance, you might enjoy this more than I have. I can't even speak. It was okay. It was okay. The next one is a young adult book, Before I Fall. This was also made into a movie, so if you want to watch the movie instead of reading it, or if you want to give it to someone that likes young adult books, I think I read it just too old in general. But you follow the story of the main character. She is a popular girl at school, and they have a party for Valentine's Day and she dies in a tragic car accident and she relives her day over and over again. And she, you know, is trying to fix a mistake, maybe realizing that she has more an impact on others than she thinks. And it was okay. I think I would have liked it more if I had read it as a teenager. The last one is a bit of a stretch to include in here, but if you love time loops, I feel like you're going to be like me and desperate for any you can find. And... tanastra. This book, there are technically 3 moments with time loops. It's just not the whole theme of the book, so it still counts. This is one of the weirdest books I've ever read. I did actually a video on the weirdest books that I've read, and this wasn't in there because it was a while ago. But this is kind of a magical school, like adult fantasy, magical school, dark academia, and again, time loops-ish. It's just so freaking weird. But just embrace the weird and you might enjoy it. The main female character, she's on a vacation with her mom when she realizes that this man is following her and he forces her to do some things that include a time loop. And this is basically her way to get admitted to magical school, but she wants nothing to do with this. She just has no choice. So that's how it starts, and things just get weirder and weirder, but I just could not put it down. And like I said, there are 2 more time loops later on. I'm not going to mention it. You have to read it. And yeah, would recommend it. I have book 2 on my TBR for the future. I don't think there are going to be time loops. I don't know actually. So we'll see. But book 1, there are 3, so it counts. Okay, the next 2 is going to be the spoiler section. So you are warned, it's on the screen. The first one, I've heard people mention the time loop when you are reviewing it, so it's probably not that big of a deal. Book 2 maybe more, but you are warned. But if you're watching this video, I feel like you just want recommendations, so it probably is not a big deal. So, you know how I mentioned Wrong Place, Wrong Time feels like a mom recommendation? Recursion by Blake Crouch feels like a dad recommendation. I'm not a mom nor a dad and enjoyed both, but you know what I mean. This is very, very readable, as are most of his books. In this one, you're following two point of views. The first one is a woman trying to invent this machine to help people with their memories, people with Alzheimer. And the second point of view, you're following a man who's investigating weird deaths of people that are unaliving themselves because they have false memories. They feel like they are not living their real life right now. You kind of see where this is going. And the time loop portion is in the second half, which is why I think it's kind of a spoiler, but if you love time loops, you're not going to mind knowing that. And yeah, it was really interesting. I do think that this is probably one of his best books. It will keep you up at night trying to finish it. And it just contains tropes and just genre in general that I personally really enjoy. So would highly recommend it if you have yet to pick it up. The next one is more of a spoiler, so again, you are warned. This is the third book in a series, so it's not going to be something you want to read because of that, but Children of Memory by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the third book in the Children of Time series. Book 1 is one of my all-time favorite adult sci-fi, First Contact with Aliens, super unique. But the third book, you are following the remnant of book 1 and 2, and also a pocket of humanity that survived on a different planet. And you get kind of vibes of the movie The Village, like us versus them. Who is them? Nobody knows. Everyone is like staying safe in the village, blah, blah. So you get a little bit of vibes of that, which was nice. I feel like the ending was kind of weak. I feel like my interest in general throughout the book went up and down. So it might be an unpopular opinion. It's a fairly new release. I'm curious still to hear more people's reviews and thoughts. But yeah, not a bad book, but I don't think that the time loop is that big of a deal, but it is also a spoiler. So finally, the third section is going to be about books that are on my TBR, so books that I want to read. I'm hoping they are time loops and not time travel. I will not know until I read them, but it's what I've heard. I've seen these on lists, which is why, you know, I picked them up because I want to read more books about time loops. So go after these people, not me. The first one is a book that I just got a recommendation in my comment section, and it is The Eternal Return of Clara Hart. I ordered it, but it says temporarily out of stock, so I don't know when I'm gonna get it. Plus this cover is awful, straight up awful, but the ebook was about the same price as the paperback, so like, of course I ordered the physical copy instead. But yes, this is a headache. But the premise sounded interesting. I believe the author is using that premise, that book, to discuss grape culture. I'm trying not to get demonetized, and consent and everything. You're following a male character who has a friend that makes like sexist jokes, and then one day he catches him SA-ing a female character, Clara, and she manages to escape and gets in a car accident, and then this is where the time loop happens. She's reliving that day over and over again. So I'm assuming, like I said, that the author is going to use that topic to discuss that. That's what I got from the summary on Goodreads. But it sounds interesting. I'm looking forward to trying it. Like I said, big fan of time loops in general. I will try it if it has one. The next two I actually added to my list while I was preparing this video. I was looking, like, Googling more like books with time loops because I have a feeling I forgot something and I can't figure out which book. So it is what it is. Two that I've added. Life and Death are wearing me out. So in this one, you follow a male character who is executed and he ends up in hell, and he is tortured and then reborn as all the animals from the Chinese zodiac one by one. So we'll see. That sounded cool. I'm going to try that for sure. And then the next one is Neverworld Wake, which this one is a young adult one, which I mentioned. I feel like I'm getting too old for them, but I'm going to try it because the premise sounded interesting. You're following 6 people that are in between life and death, and they're reliving the same day, and they have to decide which one of them will be able to escape the loop. So 5 of them are friends that got in a car accident, and the 6th one, they don't really know what happened. They're not really telling them how they died. So we'll see how that goes. It probably sound cool. So the rest, I purposely try to forget what they are about. I tend to do that. I add books because they sound cool for whatever reason, in this case, time loop. And then I try really hard to not remember because I want to enjoy them once I get to them. So quickly, This Time Tomorrow, which I should be reading very soon. I have the audiobook coming from the library. It's on my waiting list. And I have a couple physical ones, actually. Let's go through these ones really quickly. I have Time and Time Again, which the title, I feel like that sounds like it should be a time loop. I keep forgetting I own this, so should read that soon. I have The End of Eternity. I saw it on the list of time loops, so hopefully that's true. Same thing with The Fold. And then I have The 9 Lives of Rose Napolitano. I believe from the title, it sounds like it's going to be a time loop. We'll see. And then I also have The Unusual Second Life of Thomas Weaver. Those are all the ones that I'm pretty sure are time loops. I have a couple other ones on my shelf that seem more time traveling, like I was saying, The Time Traveler's Wife, or the Stephen King one with the numbers. I feel that's more time travel. Correct me if you want to in the comment section, but yes, these are all the books that I have read or want to read with that trope. Feel free to give me more recommendations in the comment section for me and everyone else. And let me know your thoughts. If you have read the ones I've mentioned, did you like them? Did you not? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And yeah, that's going to be it for this specific book recommendation video. Let me know if there are any other ones you would like me to do. Like I said, I'm going to be preparing one with time travel because as I was preparing my list, there are a few that I was like, I feel like this is kind of in between, or like alternate universe. I feel like this also, they're all very close, but I tried to strictly talk about the time loop ones. Would you like to see one about movies and TV shows? Because I feel like I have watched a lot of those too, because big fan. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, including I did one about, I was mentioning weird books. If that's your thing, would recommend. And I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye.